Welcome back. As we mentioned last segment, the 100th session of the South Dakota legislature is in full swing. KELOLAND News has a resident expert covering the session, of course, Capitol News Bureau reporter Bob Mercer, and I spoke with him earlier about the session so far. So we're here with Bob Mercer, Capitol News Bureau, and Bob's here right now. And Bob, I guess right off the bat, I just want to ask you, what are the top of mind issues for you right now in the legislature?
Well, the first thing we have is the Lieutenant Governor, Larry Roden, is going to become the next governor when Kristi Noem gets, appointed or confirmed by the U.S. Senate as Homeland Security Secretary. And so that'll create a real shuffle here. It's the first time that South Dakota has changed governors during the course of a legislative session, and so we'll have to see what presumably Governor Roden would bring in if he'll make any staff changes. I doubt that, but we'll just see what he has to do. Another big issue that's coming up. There will actually be two ballot measures in 2026, based on what I'm seeing so far in the legislature. One, which is pushed by Republicans, would basically ask voters to vote again on whether they want Medicaid expansion to continue. And they voted in 2022 to expand the income eligibility for Medicaid from 100% of the federal poverty level to 138%. And that's brought in between roughly 25,000 more adults. Where it gets complicated is this: the federal government pays 90% of the costs for that expanded population. And what the Republicans in the House voted to do the other day was put a measure on the ballot, a constitutional amendment that would allow the legislature to repeal the expanded portion of Medicaid if and when the federal government ever drops below 90% of the federal cost share. And so the House voted for that pretty much overwhelmingly by Republicans. Democrats opposed it. And so the measure will now move over to the Senate. The governor has no say in a resolution. It's just the legislature will decide whether or not they want to put it on the ballot. The other probable ballot measure in 2026 that's coming through the legislature would ask voters to approve raising the threshold to pass a constitutional amendment from the current simple majority, which is 50% plus one, to 60%. And that's the House Republicans pushed that through the other day, and so now that'll come to the Senate. And since the Senate is overwhelmingly Republican as well, my guess is that the Senate Republicans will agree with both, and we'll have at least two measures on the ballot, two constitutional amendments on the ballot in 2026.
So this year's legislature, is there a feel for anything different this year compared to other years?
Yeah, after the legislature last year passed Senate Bill 201, which dealt with pipelines, CO2 pipelines in particular, the voters overturned that law in the November 2024 election, and the voters also turned out a lot of the Republican incumbents who voted for that law if they had primaries. And so what we have now is a new Republican leadership structure, top to bottom, in both chambers. The people, the lawmakers who opposed that bill almost to a person are now the new leaders. Before, to a person, they were basically Republicans who had voted for the bill. So that CO2 issue has completely changed the makeup of the legislature. How is the new leadership doing so far? Pretty well. I mean, they're very respectful. They're trying to run meetings as well as they can. They treat people with witnesses with respect. Things are going well. It's only the second week of the legislative session, so we'll have to see if that continues. But that's the big change this year.
Um, in the past, marijuana laws, abortion laws have been big issues for lawmakers. Anything on that venue?
Oh, not really on either one. Not this year. The recreational marijuana was defeated. That ballot measure was defeated in November, and so I think that effort is over. That's the second time it's lost in 3 tries, and the attempt to the ballot measure that would have put abortion rights into the Constitution was defeated as well, and the legislature is so heavily Republican and so heavily right to life. I don't see the legislative session as a place to where any attempt to revive that would have a chance. The abortion is now illegal in South Dakota after the Dobbs decision of a couple of years ago by the U.S. Supreme Court, and so I don't think Republicans want to touch it at all. I haven't seen any bills either that have come in yet to attempt to loosen the exemption. Currently, abortions are allowed only to protect the life of the mother, and there are some legislators who have been interested in the past in possibly loosening that up a little bit, but I haven't seen any bill come into that effect at this point yet either. There's still time to submit bills.
Well, coming up after the break, the frigid temperatures of earlier this week could have been fatal for people caught in the elements. A look at the challenges facing Sioux Falls homeless shelters.